I've been watching some videos on dissociative identity disorder, and that's actually a disorder that I think since I was 15, I suspected that I had some version of this. I definitely experienced some of the aspects of splitting between different alters or characters. So in my system, and I've heard the word system used in those with DID who talk about the way that their personality splits. In my system, there is a personal mythology that's grown up with the alters, and there's a fantasy language that's used to keep track of the alters. They're named in that fantasy language. They do not have English names. They have Irloldia names, and Irloldia is the fantasy language that goes along with this. But each alter is called a senth, and senth is also a word within Irloldia. Senth is translated not so much as alter, but motive set. So there's something about certain sets of motivations that seem to have formed my senthit, and senthit is the plural of senth, which is probably the closest analog is alter within talking about DID. I am wondering if there is a pattern of development when it comes to splitting off of these senthit and these alters when they develop in individuals with DID or something like DID. And I'm wondering, I'm looking at, I studied linguistics a little bit, or a lot of it, and there's something that happens with colors. I mean, you can find certain sequencing patterns like this all over the place in many sorts of disciplines, but I'll use it with colors. When languages are mapping colors in whatever universe they're looking at, whatever frame they're looking at, black and white come first. Sometimes they're called black and white, sometimes they're called light and dark. And then the next color to appear and be named is always red. So if a language has two colors, it's black and white. If a language has three colors, it's always going to be black, white, and red. And there's a specific hierarchy to this. I'm wondering with DID if there is a pattern that can be noted where individuals come up with, say, if an individual has two alters, one will have this characteristic and one will have this other kind of characteristic. And then, is there like a third one? If there's three, then there's these two and also this third third senth or third alter that will operate in specific emotional frames in certain life situations, certain emotional spheres, whatever. I guess, okay, so like my main curiosity now is there a hierarchy of development for alters? Because some people have, like, I have 5 alters, I have 9, I have 22. Where are these breaking down from? And is there a hierarchy that would go all the way out to that 22? Or are these alters split up in a different way? So like one person might experience 8 alters the same somebody else would experience 24, except they're breaking it down. Their concept of an alter is actually a third of what this person considers as an alter. So that's very abstract, but I think there might be something here. I think there also might be a way in with a Russian system called TRIZ, T-R-I-Z, that is used to predict sequencing and ordinality within evolution, in evolution in general, systems evolution. So systems evolution, this is used to break down business systems and corporate structures and innovation systems, the trees I'm talking about. But then we also have system when it comes to a person with dissociative identity disorder. I would call that also not an individual, but a dividual. I think I have another video on that. Dividual, not individuals, dividuals. People who can be divided. These are the different minds. And this seems to be a topic that I keep coming back to, but also losing it again because I am someone who experiences DID or something like DID. I lose it again. And I think people with DID are very familiar with the concept of losing that. And it's like, this might be a phenomenon that's experienced or micro experienced by other people who maybe don't have DID, or something that could be called DID. See, I'm a little bit hesitant to label what I'm experiencing with DID, because I don't want to be the same thing, and also like or assume it's the same thing when it's not. I don't want to do that. And also, if there's an existing base of scholarship that I don't really like the way it's going, I don't really want to be attached with that either. So even in that, there's some dissociation. Need to be different and special, and are you coming out with these different sorts of self just because you want to feel special? And is that an innate need, or is it like a first world problem that's really not a main concern worldwide? Or is this just simply what self-actualization looks like underneath, when you've had, by your environment, Maslow's hierarchy of needs taken care of enough? But also, it's like, at the same time, it's there's at least in my experience of the sense that self-actualization is happening a bunch of different times. So it's like I experience, I would say classically, 8 or 9 senthet, 8 or 9 different alters. And so they might be 8 or 9 different pyramids of different sizes, and they're all moving towards their own self-actualization. Ultimately, I'm up here, whatever, and not I, the ego, but I, the self, is somewhere up here, and it's above all the other pyramids of these different senthet. And I do have to develop them all. There's a concept, or like an agreement within my system of Kecent. Kecent means split motive set. Just referring to that there are different senthet growing up, different alters, different motive sets growing up independently of each other. I've learned to, and I have grown them in different environments. So there's different senthet that do take on different life situations and express the self ultimately. So this is a self-actualization thing, but there also are clues, because if you have DID features, you weren't able to be all of yourself at one time. And I certainly was not able to be my whole self at one time. Certainly not growing up. No fucking chance. So, I think of working in these different cells, like I can't go too deep into one. And there's a term for this in Hierarchical called Quiescent. It just means one cent, and it really means when you get stuck in one perspective, when you get stuck in one alter for too long, it's like you're only developing one part of yourself. You're only developing, it may seem like you're developing an entire self because it's an entire experience and it can go on for months, but it's unbalanced, and eventually you'll realize, like, oh shit, I have all this other stuff that's going. Okay, so the term I was about to bring up is Kecent, QSI or QSWNT, Kecent, and Kecent is the survival of all senthet, the survival of all of these parts of self, ultimately towards self-actualization, but also having a personality in the world at all. It's taken a long time for me to even get to the point where I am now, which is more integrated between some of the things that I am. There's more integration than before. So like Quiescent is one sense taking over, and it becomes unbalanced. And there are tons of consequences to this. The first consequence is what we call vira, which is escape from the world of one specific sense. And we have to run back because we have like all these different parts of ourselves that's been growing up or trying to grow up the entire time I've been alive. 29, by the way. So I can, like, jump up pretty high in certain things, and I'll have like a certain field that one of these synth is good at, and I'll be able to jump up way high, but then I'll have to abandon it. And there are, of course, huge consequences that come with that. Even if people are forgiving once you come back around, there's so many situations where I'm like in something and then I'm out of it because I have what we call a KE, synth KE, or a K-lith, which is just a switch, and an abrupt switch of synth, an abrupt switch of alter, and it just happens, and I go into a different mind, and then I'm somebody else. I'm really somebody else, to the point where it's like, having researched conspiracy theory enough and things like MK Ultra, those are the times where I'm like, was I put through MK Ultra? Did I watch certain kinds of media growing up or something that put a number of people, including myself, through this kind of self-splitting experience? Was it my upbringing when it came to my parents and my family? Like, what really was the thing? Where was the trauma? And there's a bunch of little traumas, and then huge gaps in my life that I don't remember. For example, like I feel like I was born in 1989. I think like since I've been 13, I've been saying things like life seems really long. So there's a way to like experience my life is very long, and in some sense, I have a lot of memories that might be tucked away in different compartments of my mind that often I don't have true access to. Maybe that's just the subconscious in general that I'm talking about. But right now I have the experience that I don't remember anything that happened before the year 2000. So I don't remember anything that happened before I was 11. There might be pictures of it laying around, but I don't remember it going on at all. I don't have a continuous memory stream like that. So what I might really get to is like the reason I started recording here was it's almost like I was trying to give myself a call to action on, hey, it might be interesting to look into dissociative identity systems or individuals and look, trying to find the trends of how it evolves. So there's two models I'd like to compare this with. The first model is color evolution in language, black, white, red. And the next one is TRIZ, which is much more complex, but ultimately is looking at the same kind of thing. The hierarchy of evolution. What might be the hierarchy of evolution within dissociative identity disorder? That's where I'm at.